Hey everybody, it is Quicken and welcome back to my channel. Unless it's your first time here, then welcome in general. So if you've been here for a little while, you might remember a series I had called the X-Files, where I kind of talked about dating fails. And although that series has kind of died off because I haven't had a lot of boyfriends, I was thinking about how many times how many jobs I've had and how much retail experience I have. And I was thinking I should really just talk about my terrible retail experiences. So today I'm going to get into a couple of those stories. Now, obviously I have an endless amount of stories, and some of them, although like great late night stories with my friends, just like aren't too appropriate for here. So these are a little bit like dialed down. Like I'm not going to talk about any experiences of like harassment or like being in physical danger. But you know, I've had a lot of jobs, and I kind of get teased a little bit by my friends because I've had basically so many retail jobs and so many experiences like working with the public that I've just accumulated a lot of stories along the way. So it's gonna be like no diss against my employer, anything like that. A lot of these stories are just like, what the fuck? So I'm just gonna jump right into my first story, and it is at McDonald's. So you guys may know that I worked at McDonald's for a really long time. I worked at McDonald's for about 7 years. If you've ever worked fast food, if you've ever worked retail, if you've ever worked fast food retail, then you probably have your own horror stories, like just all the time. Your life may be one giant horror story. That's not to say that I didn't have like really great times at McDonald's and make good friends and have like a cool like camaraderie with everybody. And like I said, I worked there for a really long time. But along the way, you know, I've had some very miserable experiences, some very like WTF experiences, some experiences where I felt like I was the only person on earth who was sane. I am not going to talk about some of those experiences like to graze over them. Like there was a time at McDonald's where I got like a $50 fine because I gave my brother and his father like my manager meal. And like if you're a manager, you get like one free meal a day, and if you're an employee, you get like 50% off. And I've been vegan for who knows how long at this point, so if he was coming by, I would give it to him, you know. And I got a $50 fine out of my paycheck for being caught doing that, even though it wasn't like I was doing it sneaky. I had no idea I couldn't do it. Because I could take my manager meal and throw it in the trash, but I was giving it to someone who needed it. So anyway, $50 fine. I got suspended for 2 weeks because someone on my shift was stealing bacon, and then they found the bacon in like a smaller utility freezer, so it ended up being accounted for, and my suspension wasn't lifted. Cute little fun stuff like that. But I feel like everybody's favorite story that I ever tell was the time that I had a whole bag of food thrown back at me. And it was before like Fire in the Hole, that like YouTube sensation that I never laughed at. I have never laughed at a Fire in the Hole video ever. Those poor people. If you don't know what I mean, people will get like a large milkshake, and when they get to the service window, they throw it back at the employee. And I'm just letting you know, if that ever happened to me, I would have just left. Not even clocked out, just we'll try again tomorrow, boys. So this actually happened to me when I was 15. So where I live, you can start working when you're 14 with like parental permission, whatever. And McDonald's is somebody that employs at 14 years old. You just have like limited jobs that you're able to perform. And when I was 15, one of the jobs I was able to perform was like the second window. So the first window, you know, you pay, and the second window is where you receive your food. And it's generally the person in the first window who takes your order when you drive around to the drive-thru. I'm gonna try to scare Mike. Bruh! Unaffected. So me at the second window, 15, I'm not really sure like what has happened in the other part, like the interaction previous, if it was something with the order or, you know, something with the money or some words exchanged. But by the time the person got to my window, I am 15 years old, and I don't prepare, like the person in the second window also doesn't prepare your order. They literally stand there, and if you get soda, they put the lid on it, and they give you straws, or if you need more ketchup, they'll get that for you. It's kind of like all a very self-sustained area. you're encouraged not to leave that area. So if you even ran out of ketchup packets, someone would deliver them to you in your area. When I became a manager, it's always where I put like my little high schoolers. It's fine spot. However, you're kind of like out of control. So even if the customer is like, I forgot I wanted to add a cheeseburger, I would have to ask someone else to do that. So I'm in my little zone. I open the window to greet the guy and I'm like, hey, how are you? Someone hands me his bag of food. I hand it along to him and I give him his soda. And in this exchange, he becomes like very flustered. He opens his bag and he's like, every time I come here, you get it wrong. And I'm like, what happened? What's wrong? And he's like, you did this. You put this in here. This isn't what I effing ordered. And I'm looking in the car and his daughter's in the car and she's like maybe 10 or 11. So I'm trying to like look at her like, are we cool? Are you and me still cool? So I'm looking at her, looking at the dad, because I don't know about you, but even when my mom used to call everybody hun, and I hated it. So even at 2 years old, I was probably like, ma'am, come people that did. Like, so I was like looking at her, be like, yo, your dad's freaking. So I'm like, oh, like, I didn't do it. Which isn't right. It's not, in retail, it's kind of like a moving machine and you're blamed for everything along the way. And I hadn't learned that yet. I still had a little soul left. I was like, I didn't do that. I didn't pack your order. He snapped. He was like, you didn't do this? You didn't give me the wrong order? And he crumpled up the bag and threw it back at me. And I really wasn't expecting it. So it was like, just like, and I was so young and so still like optimistic. Like if that would have happened to me today, I would have just been like, all right, sir, do you want a refund? You know, but I was, the second that food like exploded on me, I was crying, just like tears. And it was one of my first experiences like crying around people and crying around like relative strangers, you know, because when you're 15, you don't realize that your comrades, your coworkers, like, I don't know, you're all on the same kind of team. So I'm just like losing it, crying. I couldn't believe it. In between the two windows, like the person who takes the order and the money, and then me, there's a hallway with like no windows or sound or cameras, and I kind of just like crawled up there and I was so scared. You know, after that, no one really like helped me. Someone was like, buck up sweetheart kind of thing, like, oh, is it your first bag of food thrown at you? And all I could think, and the like mantra that kept me angry was like, he threw a bag of food at a 15-year-old. He threw a bag of food at a baby and thought she did it. You know, like if you went to McDonald's and you saw a literal baby at the window, would you blame the baby? You know, would you blame the baby for doing it? And even if the baby packed your order, wouldn't you be like, I see that a baby did this. So like, maybe I shouldn't become furious. He became furious. I have so many good McDonald's stories. It's crazy that that's everybody's favorite. Like there was a time a kid just like let everything go, throw up, I don't know what it was, but I was the smallest person on my staff and I remember putting a hose through my belt loops and crawling up into the play place so I could spray it with the hose. And then like went back to work. Like, no, like, you know, take the rest of the day off, Amanda, you really did that. Just like, okay, so if you could just wipe off, I'm gonna need you to get hit in the face with some food. So continuing on to food retail, if you don't call it food retail, you may have never done it before because you're basically selling product to people who 50% of the time don't like it. So I used to work at a coffee shop and it wasn't like a standalone coffee shop, it was inside of a larger market. So when you're inside of a larger situation like this, like if you work at a mall, you know, if you work at like an airport, train station, when you work inside of like a bigger thing, you're kind of like, I guess with me, I was kind of like, anything that happens outside of here, just, I didn't see it. Just, oh well, you can't get into the bathroom? I don't know. There was a time that I was on my lunch break and I just went to like a different booth to get lunch. Now, I am generally somebody who packs my lunch, but if anything happens to me, I have to treat myself. So I remember whatever I got, I think it was just like a hot bowl of oatmeal. I was like, oh my god, it's coming. So I'm sitting down at this other booth, and this guy next to me, he's kind of just like a corporate type. He pulls out his laptop, his like iPhone. He's like a luggage suitcase kind of professional deal. I don't know, like leather-bound portfolio, like a whole thing, like a lot. A lot. I was like, my friend, we're all eating here. What do you think is gonna happen? So he unpacks all of this stuff, and then he asks me, he's like, excuse me, would you mind watching my stuff while I go get a cup of coffee? I wanted to be like, they serve coffee here. But I was like, I looked at all his stuff. I looked at my bowl of oatmeal. I evaluated my own demeanor. And I was honest with him. I'm proud of myself for being honest. Let me not get ahead of myself. I was like, I don't know if I can be responsible for all those things. Maybe you should pack them up. As if to be like, that's an Apple computer, and this is Philadelphia. And I want to eat my oatmeal with my face in the bowl. In the bowl. I'm on my break. I don't know you. I don't want to service you. I don't want to service anyone right now. I mean, I didn't say that. I just said, oh, I don't know if I can be responsible for all those things. And he said, excuse me? And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that such a modest request from my own self, like, I don't know, I'm tiny and I wouldn't die for your laptop because I don't know you, and you seem like someone I don't want to know, you know? Because, like, I get that you have a Patrick Bateman vibe, but if we get too close, you'll kill me. I saw the movie. I read the book. He said, excuse me? And I said, I'm sorry, like, I'm on my break, and I don't want to be responsible for your things. And that was it. And, of course, I'm wearing an apron for the place where I work, because I am just a humbled laborer. So he gets up, leaves all his stuff, and goes to my booth and tells my boss. And I don't know what he tells my boss, because I'm sure however that moment transpired in his mind was probably 10 times more aggressive than the moment I was complimenting myself on prematurely for being responsible and honest. Oh, it was so nice of me to tell him that I really couldn't guarantee the safety of his items because I am meek and hungry. And he was probably like, your employee couldn't watch my laptop for 5 seconds so I could tie my shoe? So I got back from break and got in trouble. But it's not the most trouble I ever gotten. And the next story I'm going to tell still isn't the most trouble I ever gotten. So at my coffee booth, like a police officer, an officer of the law, came to the coffee booth and ordered. So we ordered, and I was like, oh, $5.75, like whatever, a number. And then he stood there. And then I stood there. You know, it was early. In my mind, there's just like loud screaming and music going on. So I'm just like... He goes, well, are you going to get it for me? And I look back down, I'm like, yeah, it's $5.75. And he's like, oh, everywhere else I go, they give me the coffee first. In my mind, it was like, what? Why are you doing this? Why are you being confrontational so immediately? And I was like, yeah, just if you want to pay, then I'll get it for you. I can't, like, leave the register open. And if you've ever worked, like, fast food in any establishment or whatever, the register has, like, a timer on it. I remember at McDonald's, you would want to complete a transaction under 17 seconds, and a timer. It's small. It's not a big deal. But I know at McDonald's, all those times were recorded, and if there was ever like a, 90 seconds on your shift, usually the boss would like call or be like, hey, I noticed last night at 7:45 p.m. there was a 90-second transaction. Do you know anything about it? And I would be like, no, I'm going through puberty. So in this, I was already just like, this seems hostile for no reason. So I was like, yeah, it's $5.75, you know, I don't want to leave the register. This is just like the way it goes. I didn't make the rules of customer service or like fast food retail in any capacity, so I'm not sure. So I was like, yeah, it's $5.75. And he was like, what? Do you think I'm gonna run away with the coffee? And I was like, the booth is designed to flow. The first step is the cash register, and then you move along, and then the next step is the coffee, and the final step is the cream and sugar and trash. Every place is like this in America. So I was like, I'm sorry, I have to collect your money first, just like every other customer. And he's like, but I'm a police officer. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice. And then he said, I've been coming here for 10 years. And I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't recognize you. And I shouldn't have said that, because that was fighting words. That was my contempt. That was when I decided that I wanted to get in trouble that day, when that's all I said. I didn't recognize you. Because I knew all my regulars, we all do. But hey, I didn't recognize him. And if he came every day in a police officer's uniform, I feel like I would have been like, are you that cop? I also would have been like, are you that cop that receives his coffee first at the end of the booth and then walks back up here to pay it? So he walked away, and then he called, not my manager, but the owner of my company, and I got in a lot of trouble. But when I tried to defend myself, because I was like, I don't know what he told you, but he wanted to get his coffee first and then pay, and then backtrack, and then cut in front of the other people in line who were waiting to get to the cash register so they'd take their order, my boss was like, why didn't you do it for him? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I should have, because none of this is worth it at all. But wow, that was 20 minutes. So this has been my experience working food retail. I have some great other stories that I wrote down, but didn't realize I would get so passionate about these other stories, so no time for them. But let me know if you'd like to see this keep going, and I would love to keep going with it as well. I love you guys so much. If you haven't checked out my series, The X-Files, this series is kind of based off of that, kind of inspired by, but I would like to keep going with these retail stories as well, so give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and you want to see more. Hit that subscribe button if it's your first time here. I'd love to keep entertaining you with the stories of my life. I love you guys so much, and until next time, bye.